I'm Joe Marino, and it's good to see the Bills end the preseason on a high note.
The final exam is turned in. We'll find out what players make this 53-man roster on Tuesday at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. This is the Locked On Network, and you're watching Bill Squad.
Who's ready, Bills Mafia? It's the Bills Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Buffalo Bills, every week. Breaking down the big hits and game-changing plays the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So gear up and squad up. The Bills Squad show starts now.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills, live with the big O Jerry Ostroski for Bills Squad. Post-game, Bills beat the Buccaneers. What's the score? 23-19. The Bills get a dub here to close out the preseason, certainly looking like a much more competent operation than what we saw the first two preseason games. Jerry and I will be here to give you all of our immediate reactions following the game. If you're here with us live, make sure you like, make sure you comment, leave some questions. Let's have a fun roundtable discussion here to close out this preseason. Jerry, welcome in.
Appreciate it, Joe. It's good to see the boys go out and compete. It looked like they knew what they were doing. They got after it, and you would expect that in a final preseason game where you have a bunch of guys trying to make final impressions on Brandon Beane in the front office. And it was a good game. I was happy to see the things that I saw. I was happy to see some progress with some players, and for all intents and purposes, it was a great night.
Yeah, much more enjoyable. I'll tell you, I would have been nervous hitting go live if we saw another stinker, like we saw the first couple of weeks. We got to talk about this for a third time. At least there's a high note to reflect upon as this preseason is finally over and we can start really focusing in on where this roster is going to land and then getting ready for the Baltimore Ravens. But as we laser in on kind of recapping this game, I do want to start with the Tre'Davious White situation where we have been waiting for an update on this, and Brandon Beane goes on Bills Kickoff Live, and he really didn't give us an update. He acknowledged that he had a lower body injury, and there's no timetable for the return. That's not true. The Bills know exactly what the injury is, and they know exactly when Tre'Davious White is going to be available. So now we're just kind of waiting to see if Sean McDermott gives us a little bit more in his post-game press conference, but it sounds like an update that's not really an update regarding Tre'Davious White.
Exactly. I mean, you're 2 weeks away from the season opener. You're not going to tell anybody what's going on. So I wouldn't expect for Bills Mafia to know anything, even when McDermott's done with his presser. I don't think you'll hear much about it. You're going to get that standard answer. And, I think it was pretty obvious by the fact that Dane Jackson played almost the entire game. We saw very little of Jamarcus Ingram. He did have one tackle. I'm not sure if that was on special teams or not, but it seemed like Dane Jackson got the majority or all of the snaps outside at corner tonight. So Bills have a plan, I'm sure. I would not doubt if you see maybe the Bills try to make a trade before cuts, and they've got some players that I think that they can move that have some value to them. And if you can get the right team that needs some depth at those positions, maybe you can pick up a veteran cornerback or a younger guy that's a fringe guy to bring in and try to give yourself some more depth. But I don't think we've heard the last of this cornerback situation in Buffalo yet.
Well, I think that's kind of the interesting thing to unpack is based on what we were able to observe tonight, what clues does that give us about what the heck's going on here? And I don't know, my knee jerk is thinking about Dane Jackson playing 3/4 of the game. And he was the guy that in my mind was the favorite to start, assuming Tre'Davious White can't go. Right. This guy started 28 games for the Bills since 2020, and not usually by choice, but exactly these types of circumstances. And I know that nobody's thrilled about Dane Jackson having to go in and start, but the Bills have won a lot of games with Dane Jackson, and they're going to prioritize the experience that he would bring to the table when your only other serious candidates on the roster are Jamarcus Ingram, who rostered corner last year, right? But he was not the third guy. It was Kaiir Elam, and then it was Jamarcus Ingram. So is that a situation where he just kind of steps into that role, Or do we need to take seriously Dorian Strong, who I think played a good amount in this football game? So do we buy into the experience of Dane Jackson? Do we read into the lack of playing time from Jamarcus Ingram tonight? Or would the Bills go with a 6th-round rookie to start in week 1 against the Ravens? Like, how are you unpacking this, and where is it landing for you in terms of predicting what the Bills are going to do here?
Going with Dorian Strong would be the most unshawn.
Right.
That way, I mean,
yeah,
I don't see it happening. I mean, I just don't see it happening. Now, granted, if they were forced to, because one of these guys, when I say one of these guys, I mean Dane Jackson and Ingram get hurt, then you're going to have to. But I think this is a situation where you're probably getting a 2-for-1 type deal. You play Dane some, you play Ingram some. If you get a hot hand, you go with the hot hand, and likewise. But the thing about Baltimore, at least to me anyway, makes me feel a little bit good is the Bills have been really, really good in run defense this preseason. Obviously, I'm sure they have plans to get bigger when they need to against power sets against Baltimore. So maybe that gives you a little bit more time. The emphasis isn't quite as much on corner week 1 as it is. If you stop that running game of Baltimore, if you slow it down and contain it, then you get some freedoms across the board with that. But if they get that thing rolling, then it's hard on everybody.
Well, you think their 11 personnel group is going to be Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and DeAndre Hopkins. You can probably live with your matchups of Hopkins versus Dane Jackson. The problem is I don't know that they're going to live in 11. I think they're going to live in a lot of 2 receiver sets and multiple backs or multiple tight ends. And so now you're dealing with Rashad Bateman on Dane Jackson, which is not as good of a matchup. But I mean, that's the reality. When you start to get down to your 3rd corner, I mean, really, it would be your 3rd option at one spot. I mean, there's going to be some matchup problems. You're not just going to have guys lining up that can step in and to be a seamless transition. So it's going to put a little something on the coaching staff and kind of the rest of players around them to make it work. Right. That's the NFL, right? It's figuring it out on the fly. You're going to have attrition. It's what can you do from a scheme perspective to help overcome it. And I think the Bills will be challenged potentially in week 1. Now we don't know. Maybe Tre'Davious White's able to go, but they're not going to tell us. They're not going to tell us any sooner than they have to tell us, which might be the first time that we get an actual injury report going into week 1. So I think we can speculate here, but I mean, you could probably talk yourself into a lot of different outcomes.
Well, I think with Baltimore, too, the biggest worry to me would be tight end. I mean, I know they want to be in 2 receiver sets, but they can exploit that tight end quite a bit. Preseason, again, we've had issues the last couple of weeks with tight ends. Obviously, Chicago had a lot of success right away in the middle of the field with the tight ends. But tonight was awesome because you see what happens when players understand what to do. When the mind knows what's up, then the athlete can show up. And I thought that was the difference between this week and last week, whether they spent a lot of time on Tampa Bay and said, Bobby Babbage talked about it during the week. Maybe we kind of did him wrong and didn't spend that time we needed to on the Bears. But obviously tonight they were much different mentally than they were the week before. And when you know your assignments, you can let it fly. And I thought they did that.
What more could Tyrell Shavers do to make a football team than the preseason that he put together, capped by the unbelievable one-handed touchdown reception? He has another catch in this game. He gets some quality reps on special teams, covering kicks, covering punts. It just feels like the guy is checking the boxes here. And I mean, I think that's when it's an exciting thing is that he, as a depth receiver, what he's shown as a route runner, what he's shown in terms of verticality, what he's putting together from a special teams perspective really checks the boxes for what you're looking for in a depth receiver. Like, I feel like I'm at the point now where I would be surprised if Tyrell Shavers doesn't make this team. If everything's earned, I don't know what more this guy could have done to earn a roster spot.
I found it funny that on X, I tweeted something and you almost immediately tweeted the same exact thing. What more does Shavers need to do to make this football team? And you're right. I mean, he checks all the boxes. We clamor all the time that we're too small at receiver, except for Keon. Shavers fits that role. He's 6'4", 212 pounds. We have no vertical threat. Shavers fits that box. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, like you talked about. And the kid's been here. He's done his time. You've developed him. Now all this development time you spent on him, keeping him around, has come to fruition, and he's doing everything you want him to do. How do you keep him off the roster? I don't think you can. And if he is, put it to you this way: he's either on the roster or he's on somebody else's roster. I don't think he stays on the practice squad if they try to hide him. He's just been too good this preseason. And like you said, man, he gives you something that you don't have in anybody else. And to let that go would be absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I think he's got two paths. One is that the Bills keep 6. So the 5 that everyone's perceived: Shakir, Coleman, Palmer, Moore, Samuel, Shavers. Or the Bills keep 5 and one of Samuel's or Moore doesn't make this roster. And while we have not really seen Curtis Samuel this preseason at all, I think that the team has a level of confidence in him, whether it's the history that goes back further than 2024, of course, with Joe Brady and some of the guys with Carolina, but also what he did do last year and had some really clutch moments. It showed up big in the Colts game, had a big touchdown in the Kansas City win, the 4th down touchdown in the AFC Championship game, the Denver play. Like, he made some big plays. I think they're comfortable with him. He didn't play tonight. He had an illness that actually, when I understand, he stayed in Buffalo. To me, it's about Elijah Moore. And I think Elijah Moore's made a lot of mistakes this preseason, and I think it happened again in this game. He certainly had a nice yards after catch play on a 9-yard reception, but he couldn't dig out the low throw on the 3rd down. And then he whiffed on a block in a run play where that corner was able to knife in there and make a tackle for loss against the run. It's like, I've seen more drops, more whiff blocks, more misreading leverage on a yards after catch opportunity with Elijah Moore. And it's like, to me, that's the guy that, if the Bills keep 5 and one of them Shavers, it's Elijah Moore to me that's not going to make this team.
No, I agree with you 100%, but I'm going to go one more on you and say I'll keep 6, and I'd still get rid of Moore, and I'd keep Wilkerson.
Wow.
I'm telling you, the guy's a reliable receiver. He's where he's supposed to be. He runs the routes the way they're supposed to be run. He catches the ball when he needs to catch it. He makes blocks. I mean, he does all the stuff. It's like Mac Hollins light, except I think he's got more ability as a receiver, not just a guy that's a special teamer and wears funky outfits before games. I like Wilkerson a lot. He's got NFL experience. He was with the Patriots. He's a pro. And if you're going to keep 6, I mean, why keep a guy that's just like 3 other dudes you got on the roster? Bring another guy in like Wilkerson and let him have an opportunity. So I wouldn't, maybe this is the Bills trying to, if they keep Moore or they keep 5, maybe try to put Wilkerson on the practice squad. But I think he's shown quite a bit as well. I really like him, and he led the team tonight in receptions, 5 receptions for 46 yards. He's doing a great job.
Yeah, he's definitely flashed, and he earned some first-team reps when I was at camp with Josh Allen. So I think he's done some nice things here. I guess I'd be a little surprised. I thought he'd be a priority for the practice squad, and I know that was more of a preferential. You were not being predictive there, but I think you're just doing a good job of highlighting a guy that's showed up well this preseason. Let me ask you about KJ Hamler. Like, where do you think he slots in this conversation? He's made a few plays. He's had some return opportunities. Is he more attractive to you than Elijah Moore? He's shown you more.
Oh, well, I think if you're looking for a true blue return guy, yes. And we have to fill that role. Is it Laviska Shenault? I mean, he had 1 for 13 tonight. Hamler had 3 for 33. They're, I think receiver-wise, it's kind of a wash. Maybe Hamler's got a little bit more juice to him. But if you're looking to go ahead and get a guy that's going to return kicks, he has made some poor decisions on fielding kicks this preseason.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to form a roster and with salary caps and all those different things and where do guys fit, sometimes you got to take what you got. And, if you do hold him on the roster, I mean, obviously it's because you're going to have him return. And so I could see that possibly, keeping Hamler over Elijah Moore. But then the other thing that's interesting, Joe, and we talked about it off air, is how does this whole backup offensive line thing work? Do they stay with 9 or with Van Pran Granger on the PUP list? Do you keep 8, manipulate it that way, try to get one of these 2 centers, whether it be Green or Freeney on the practice squad and do it that way, and then have that extra spot to hold another receiver until everything clears up, and then you can make some moves accordingly. So I think there's definitely some interesting math that will happen before 4 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesday.
All right, we got a lot more to do here. Coming up next, want to start a conversation about Cole Bishop and what he put out there today, and if it gets us a little bit more confidence about him being the guy next to T-Rap in week 1. So we're doing that and a whole lot more. Folks, be sure to stick with us. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Joe Marino, Jerry Ostroski live on the Bill Squad. I feel bad I haven't even acknowledged that Jeremy White is off tonight, but we know he's having a great time with his family and getting refreshed, getting ready for the grind of the season.
Yes.
So I'll be excited to get Jeremy back because this hosting stuff, man, it makes me nervous, dude. I can host and it's just me, that's fine. I'm got to deal with myself and I got to make sure I keep the conversation going. It's a different seat. And I miss Jeremy White very much right now, especially in this live reaction podcast. So
I understand.
Yeah. It's, you and Jerry, you guys are the guys that host that radio all the time. I got to do this. All right, let's talk about Cole Bishop. Big conversation this week with the remarks that Sean McDermott made, and obviously some shaky tape last week against the Bears. After he missed like 3 weeks of practice, and he goes and plays against the Bears on a just kind of a tough circumstance. But I certainly feel like he bounced back this week. Some really good physical tackles against the run, playing a lot more confident, playing with more intent, looked more sure out there today. I'm sure you probably agree with that.
No, definitely. I think that Cole Bishop did a good job of drowning out last week, being public enemy number one, and showing up this week and showing why, the Bills are relying on him to be that other safety. I mean, he made a lot of decisive plays. Again, you could tell that they knew what was going on. There was no confusion. And when there's no confusion, he's able to get downhill. He's a great downhill safety, makes a lot of tackles. And the one thing I want to talk about, I don't think people realize, is that when we get to this game prep, once 4 o'clock Tuesday hits and we get this team roster set by the end of next week and everything's good to go and we're getting ready for the Baltimore Ravens, if Cole Bishop is the other safety, which I fully believe will be the starter next to Tyler Rapp being the veteran that he is and that kind of quarterback in the back end makes a lot of people right. And Cole Bishop will play better just playing next to Rapp. He's not to the point yet to be like, Rapp as far as he can run everything in the back end. But, I really think that those two will play well together because Rapp's got such leadership ability, such knowledge of what's going on. He's very sure of himself. So when those two are together, you'll see Cole play much, much better even than he did tonight. Just because of that, having almost like that safety blanket to go with him that can help him, decipher through some things.
I'm doing the inventory in my head, and it certainly feels like just about every time Cole Bishop played last year, it was with Damar Hamlin, right?
Yeah.
Like, did he get time with Taylor Rapp? That's a heck of a point. That's not something I've heard anybody really discuss, is the reality of how much playing next to Rapp is going to help Bishop.
And who was he with last week?
Hamlin.
Yeah. And so, and this isn't a slight on Hamlin. It's just that some guys have ability to go above and beyond and just play their position. And, you talk about the great middle linebackers in the game. And like when Bernard plays, he's got that ability to keep everybody in line. And I think Andreessen will get there as well. But Rapp is the dude in the back end. I mean, even the cornerbacks, I think, really rely on him a lot as well. So I've said it for a long time now. I think he's the MVP of the back half of the defense. And when he's not in, you can see that he's sorely missed.
Yeah, I think not only did Cole Bishop need this, and look, he needed it more than anyone. I think we needed it too, just as a fan base, to have a level of like, okay, all right, there's progress. We see some of the appeal for the type of player that Cole Bishop is supposed to be, and like conceptually, he should be a helpful player against Baltimore when you think about what he brings to the table as a downhill player, a tackler, fast to flow, physical. And then I know he hasn't seen it much in the NFL, but I thought he was a very good man coverage player against tight ends at Utah. And we know that Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are a big part of what Baltimore wants to be offensively. So in theory, he's a nice player for this game. Hopefully the ascension continues and, he can show that true skill set that Sean McDermott keeps talking about.
Exactly. And, you get this last preseason games in the books. Now you got 2 weeks before the opener. He's healthy, full practice, get all those walkthrough reps and everything else. You bring Rapp back and, for all intents and purposes, get the gang back together. And it'll be good to see those two back there when the season starts.
Was Deion Walker the best defensive player on the field for the Bills tonight? Come on now. We got to get into this. He was awesome, right?
He was awesome. He was definitely awesome. Now I don't know what the term I want to use is, but 71 was struggling. He was struggling. I mean, if you lined up a guy over 71, it was probably his worst nightmare. It was Deion Walker, and Deion kind of had his way with him. Got some one-on-one stuff, threw him around, and different things like that. But yeah, he displayed what he does well, which is bully guys, grab guys, and throw them around. I still think he's got a few tendencies that he got away with in college, especially playing the run, some of this turn your shoulder backside stuff to try to squeeze through things that, he's going to have a hard time doing in the NFL. But when it is north and south, okay, and when he is north and south, when he's going forward, he's different. And that's what he did tonight. He was going north. I mean, he was going forward. And hopefully when they watch that film, they remind him that, everybody likes to consider you a dancing bear, but you're much better when you are not dancing and going that way. And he showed that tonight.
Yeah, encouraging a couple big run stops, a tackle for loss, got half of that sack with Epinesa, actually. I thought that was good complimentary rush. That's a frustrating part of a lot of watching the Bills is I feel like they only get pressure from one guy, and that's like almost the worst thing you can get because now you have potential like escape outlets. You need that complimentary pressure. I thought that showed up on that particular play.
And I think that Walker is proving a point that I make quite a bit. And I think that, and I don't know how you feel about it. You've done a lot of scouting and all that, but I've always believed that great pass rushers have a very, very good power game to them. They've got a power game that sets up the elusiveness. Mm-hmm. And when you watch, like right now, when you watch TJ Sanders, not a ton of power. He's not running. When he rushes, it's a lot of trying to slide, slap hands, misdirection, all that kind of stuff. You look at Ed Oliver, has the same thing that Sanders has, but he has a very good power game, which sets a lot of things up. You're looking at Landon Jackson, still trying to find that plan, right? I think if Landon would just, really try to run that power stuff early, it'll set his other things up. So I think that's where Deion Walker, what he's doing well, using that power, which will set up some of that little side-to-side stuff that he can do. And I know it's not like – it doesn't look like Ed Oliver, but when a guy that big can do a little bit, it goes a long way. So I think you've got to really base your pass rush off of a good bull, a good power rush, and he's doing that.
Yeah, kind of my thought on that is you typically have two different types of rushers. You have guys that can play through blocks and guys that play around blocks. Mm-hmm. And boy, it's sexy when somebody can bend and run a circle around an offensive lineman, but that's not really how sacks happen in the NFL. That's not how pressure happens, right? It's you got to be able to play through the contact. Yep. And so that's what matters the most. And so I'm with you for sure on that. And I think that's what's been exciting about Deion is his ability to soften an edge and power through it. Because I mean, let's be honest, the guy offers a lot of surface. He does, right? He's big, he's huge. And so he's got to be able to blend that explosiveness with that ability to play through the angle, or else he's going to get stuck. So,
and his style of play, not just the fact that he's huge, his style of play, he offers a lot of surface, which is what's so wild.
Yeah.
And that's why I think when you're going against some of these younger guys you can do some of these things where some of the more vet guys on the inside, they snatch jersey on the inside, they're not letting it go. And, but still, it's cool to see. I mean, the building blocks are there, and I think his best football's ahead of him, especially when he gets that body right and everything else. But yeah, he had a really good night tonight.
Should be some fun matchups between him and Tyler Linderbaum of the Ravens, who I think Linderbaum's a top 5 center in the league. But one thing, he's not as big, right? He's super athletic. He's a powerful player. He knows how to maximize his technique. But that'll be a fun foil to see those one-on-ones and see how not only Deion fares, but like what's Linderbaum's strategy for dealing with him. It'll be quite interesting. So,
well, especially if he gets that push. And, Linderbaum maybe needs a little bit of help, and then you start getting some slide game stuff going on. It's going to free some other areas up. So, yeah, it's good.
All right. So, Deion Walker, obviously, I think was one of the bright spots defensively. We talked about Colt Bishop. I want to get into some guys they're fringe players, but I think they've done something today or something this preseason that makes them worth some conversation. And the guy I want to bring up is Frank Gore Jr. Obviously, he accounted for 45% of the Bills' yards last week against the Bears, and he performed well again today. I mean, I don't know that you'd look at the per touch and be like blown away by the averages, but it just feels like this guy, when he touches the football, he knows what to do. Really good feel for navigating space. I think that's just something you have or you don't. But this guy breaks tackles. He was phenomenal in pass pro last week against the Bears. I can't really comment on that right now without watching the tape, but it feels like he's certainly not the biggest dude. He's certainly not the most explosive, but he earns that football player label. I don't think there's a spot on this roster for him, right? Because the Bills' top 3 backs are pretty well defined, but you'd love to get this guy back on the practice squad. And if you can stick with him for a little bit longer, like maybe he can be the eventual Ty Johnson replacement. I know that's, down the road, and you'd have to have some good fortune to retain him, but it feels like you can't deny what this guy's been able to do, not only this preseason, but building off of a strong rookie preseason.
Well, I think the thing that Gore does so well, and you see this in a lot of young backs, I think all good running backs, no matter what the situation is, have the ability to fall forward. They have the ability to get back to the line of scrimmage, at least get a yard or two out of a really tough run situation. He has that ability. He doesn't really get, as far as carries, you don't see many negative yard carries from him. He's able to go ahead and minimize the damage. And he's one of those backs where you just watch him and he'll just, 2 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 12 yards. He just has that knack. And and then you look at the fact that he can pass pro well. He's, from where he was when he first got to Buffalo to where he is now, he's another guy like a Shavers that's really taking advantage of his opportunity and developing himself into a really good pro, really reliable player. And, he's only been here, 2 years? Maybe I think.
Second season.
So Shavers is on year 3, right? Maybe he's got another year on the practice squad before he can crack that 53, like you said. But no, he has nothing to be ashamed of. He should be proud of himself. He's put together a heck of a preseason, and like I said, he's building on all those intangibles that pro backs have, and he's doing a really good job of it.
Well, his dad knows a thing or two about pass pro. That's probably very helpful there in his journey. Frank Gore Sr., one of the best pass blocking backs in the league for a long time. Did you play with? I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Jerry. I'm kidding.
But the thing about Frank Gore Sr. though too is, if you followed his college career, he didn't have the cleanest of paths. I mean, he fought injury.
Oh
yeah, a lot of things like that. So,
2 ACL tears in college.
Right, 2 ACL tears. Yeah. So it doesn't shock you that his son has that same sort of grittiness to him.
Yeah.
The same sort of ability to just, do whatever, show up to work and go out and run the rock. And, it doesn't shock me that he's that way. He's just like his pops.
Well, shout out Elijah Young, the running back that was signed earlier this week. Guy goes out there. He's 19 touches, 83 yards from scrimmage. You could tell this guy was running the ball like he might never touch a football again in his life. And that's what he had to do. So again, I think he's a long shot, but shout out to him for under these circumstances, being a positive part of this team. And maybe that'll help him get an opportunity on a practice squad.
Yeah, you hope so, man. It's good to see kids like that.
All right. Coming up next, Shane Buechele balled out. What does it mean? What do the Bills do about this? Is there a conversation to have? We'll do that here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for both predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So go ahead, take a flyer on the MVP race. Maybe you think Josh Allen goes back to back. Maybe there's a dark horse like Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff that you want to check out. You can crown your champion in August. If you think the Bills win the Super Bowl this year, that would be awesome. How about if you also had a little cash on that and really won? Maybe you think another team can do it. If you got a hunch, get in on the action. Or maybe you have a good feeling about some division winners. You want to parlay some of those together and get yourself a big payout. So visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Joe Marino, Jerry Ostroski, we're here live post-game. Bills beat the Bucs. And next up is cuts. Then we have week one. And this is a new thing we have going on. So if you're enjoying the post-game coverage, we're doing this after all of the games all season long. So make this part of your post-game routine. Watch the Bills get that dub. Come join me, Jerry, Jeremy. We'll give you that immediate reaction roundtable discussion here immediately following each and every Bills game. All right, Jerry. Shane Buechele. That's the correct pronunciation. Buechele. He played well. 25 of 30, 278 yards and a touchdown. Didn't turn over the football. Showed some really impressive pocket movement, like getting out of some situations, extending plays, hitting throws on the run. Look, I know there's a lot of layers to this, but probably the best preseason performance we've seen from a Bills quarterback this preseason. I don't want to get too crazy here, but how are you processing what Buechele did on the field today?
Since he's not here, let me channel my best Jeremy White. This is the Jeremy and Joe show on WGR 550. The Buffalo Bills, should they release Mike White and Mitchell Trubisky and keep Shane Buechele? I'd say the phone number, but I don't know the phone number.
Yeah.
That will be the hot topic this week, I'm sure. Shane Buechele had himself a game, did a really, really good job of managing the offense, made the plays in front of him, had some hectic scrambles and got out of it a couple times. He was sacked twice for an 8-yard loss. But, yeah, I mean, when you're 25 of 30 for 278 in the preseason, that's something else. And you have to also imagine that while he gets time in the preseason, he doesn't get that much time, So they got Mike White, they got Trubisky. You got to get Josh his touches. So how many practice plays are there in a day that you can get Shane Buechele a bunch of looks? So really impressive. Do I still think he's behind the 8 ball? Yeah, I do. I mean, I think this is Trubisky's job. But yeah, it's nice to have options. And does he turn around and become the practice squad quarterback?
Which is exactly the role that I think he's always known he's going to have. And I think there's a lot of value to that. I think a guy that can run around a little bit. I mean, let's be honest. The job of a practice squad quarterback is to be the show team quarterback, right?
Right.
His job is to be Lamar Jackson and then Justin Fields and then Tua or whatever the heck the quarterback is. Their job is to emulate that person. And so I think that's what Shane wants to do. There's a quote this week. I think it might have been from Ronald Curry, the Bills quarterbacks coach, that called Shane Buechele Josh Allen's caddy, right? And hey, it's good work if you can find it. You know what I mean? This guy's going to be chilling on the practice squad for as long as Josh Allen wants him around. You get to play golf with 17. It's not a bad gig.
But you have to understand, there's always a guy on the team. There's always an older dude, a vet, that is very limited during the regular season. Maybe he's a backup guy, maybe a team's guy. But because of the preseason, he gets to play. And they always show out. Always. And you're like, man, they got to play that guy. And then when this regular season starts, they go right back to their old role. So I think that Buechele, he knows what he is. He knows what his job is. And you know what? He got an opportunity. He was going to go out there and ball and have pride. And That stuff to me is good. I mean, that's when you have a good football team, you see things like this happen, and it didn't shock me that he played well tonight.
Over 1,500 people with us live. Hit the like button. Let us know that you're enjoying the content. Tell someone about it. Share it. Let's make this the destination for your post-game coverage. So Buechele played well, and I think the fact that he played, wall-to-wall tonight tells you everything about the Bills' intentions with Shane Buechele.
Right.
How do you process that neither Trubisky nor Mike White played? I don't think both are making the roster. So is it a little surprising to you that the one that they're not going to keep didn't play? Or do you think that they missed an opportunity? Let's say that Trubisky is going to be the QB2. Like, would it have been valuable for him to get these reps? Or is it, you're not really playing with the guy, so it doesn't matter, and you want to protect your QB2 going into the season? Like, how do you process that piece of this quarterback conversation?
I think both of those guys got ample amounts of opportunity in the preseason. They both played about the accumulation of a full game. One started the first half, the one game, then they flipped it the second game. This is an instance to me where if you're going to keep, Buechele, they wanted to give him some time because they probably knew that this was the last really serious game time he was going to have unless just absolute disaster hits. So you play Buechele, let him ball out, let him do what he does, get a feel for it, and then when it's all said and done, package it up and go. The other thing is, you probably protect your guy that you're going to keep for number 2, and then the other guy you don't want to get hurt and then have to pay him. You want to protect him from getting injured because you're going to release him anyway, and you're going to put Buechele in the practice squad, so you just let him roll with it. So there's a little bit of strategy that goes along with it, as well.
All right, so don't read too much in it. Buechele played well, and that's a great thing, but I still think he'll be released back on the Bills practice squad.
I agree, but nothing shocks me in this league anymore. So if Tuesday at 4, Trubisky and White both get cut, I would not be like, oh, my God, I can't believe this.
I will.
Nothing shocks me. Nothing shocks me. The only thing that could happen on this roster right now that would let me have a little bit of shock would be if Shavers does not make the final 53.
Ooh.
And, there's a lot of people that say, hey, and we talked about it the other day, and you kind of laid out a good case for it not to happen. That would be the one thing I'd be like, wow, really? I mean, I'm surprised by that. But other than that, nothing shocks me in the league.
Jerry, I'm concerned if he doesn't make it, I'm not sure you're going to be able to handle this. This is, I feel like I've liked Shavers a lot this preseason. I've said what I need to say, but I feel like you're invested here. This is big.
Well, if you haven't figured it out, there's certain players that I like that have certain attributes, and dudes that kind of come out of nowhere that bide their time and work hard and do everything that they were asked to do. To me, those guys deserve opportunities. And it's not like this guy has limitations very much. I mean, maybe he did. It seems to me anyway that he's worked himself out of them. And when you look at, like we talked about earlier, when you look at all the, you look at everything, his size, everything we want. I mean, he checks all the boxes. So, yeah, but a lot of it has to do with it, just like Frank Gore Jr. I love Frank Gore Jr. because he's working his butt off and he's trying to make an opportunity for himself, whether it be in Buffalo or somewhere else. All he can control is him, right? And he's controlled what he's done very, very well. And it's the same thing with Shavers to me.
Well, the next guy is going to fit perfectly into that.
Oh, I know. He's now one of heck, if he makes a team, I might get this guy's jersey. Go ahead.
Jimmy Charlo?
Yeah, that's right.
5 tackles. He had the big play on the 2-point conversion. Continues to really impress. And he was on the field well ahead of Edifwan Ulofoshio in this game, who was a rostered linebacker last year. And so I think it's pretty straightforward. Here's the linebacker situation. The Bills will keep 5 or 6. I think if it's 5, it's Bernard, Milano, Andreessen, Dorian Williams, and Shaq Thompson. If they go 6, add Jimmy Charlo to the mix. And maybe I'm being silly and thinking that Charlo can't make it over Shaq Thompson. And look, Thompson had the hamstring injury. He didn't really play in the preseason. Before that, I think he was looking strong. And I think the Bills will like that Shaq Thompson can play both the Will and the Mike. He's been a green dot player in this system before. There's a veteran, he's a veteran, right? Those are really inexperienced backups.
Right.
So I think there's a lot going for him. So I know he hasn't really done anything in the preseason games that's going to get anyone to talk about, but I think he's linebacker 5. If they go 6, which the Bills typically do go 6, it's got to be Charlo.
Guys, to me, guys like Charlo turn you into champions. And the reason why is that attitude and the way guys like him play, and you can put Shavers in that category, you can put Gore in that category. It's infectious. It's something you can coach to. Too many times we sit there and we have these debates about guys that are lazy or don't do the things they need to do and are just, pampered athletes. And then you see guys like Charo that are out there killing themselves trying to make a team.
Literally, yeah.
And that's not going to stop. And to me, those guys are the guys that help you get over the hump. They're the dudes that run downfield, and when you need a play, they make a play and cause a fumble, or they make a huge tackle on teams, or all that stuff. And that stuff is infectious. And too many times we get wrapped up in where guys were picked and who has this and who's getting paid what and whatever. And it's the blue collar dudes that get you over the hump. And that's why I just always felt that way about it. Those guys are the guys I like. I like dudes that go out there and against all odds put a case out there to where you have to make a tough decision whether you're going to get rid of them or not. And, Charlo's one of those guys. I mean, you're looking for teams help. Who better than him?
He's popped so much on special teams, and he appears to be a good open field tackler. I'm not going to act like I've been familiar with Charlo prior to him being on the Bills. And then, of course, I watched him play in these preseason games. I'm getting familiar with where he's at, but I see a really urgent player that under the circumstances for him to be in position as often as he is really impressive. But then I see some really strong open field tackling. And that's that competitive temperament plus being a good open field tackler. It's going to make you a good special teams player.
Right. And he fits the role of a Bills linebacker to a T. He's undersized and does what he does. But I played with 2 guys that were difference makers that helped the Bills get to where they were and go to 4 Super Bowls and all that. And that's Mark Pike, who's no longer with us, and it's Tasker. I see these guys like Charlo stuff. I'm not saying he's as good as Steve Tasker, but that's the type of attitude that Tasker had, that Pike had. And those are the guys that bring you that attitude in those other areas. Because let's face facts, there's not a ton of dudes in the league that just voluntarily, when they go, okay, we're looking for kickoff return guys, who wants to volunteer? There's a lot of short arms, and then these guys are willing to go, and they do a great job of it. So we'll see what happens, but he's definitely, put a great resume out there for being that he's going to have to make a tough decision.
Let's focus in on the returner situation. I know that there's been some interesting things happening at kick returner, but to me, the story here, Jerry, is now we have the last 2 preseason games. The only guy that has handled a punt return is Brandon Codrington. Yeah. And to me, if there was competition for Brandon Codrington, somebody else besides Brandon Codrington would have gotten a punt return opportunity over the last 2 preseason games. Is this shaping up for him to be rostered as the primary return guy? Or is the mystery box you find with Ty Johnson and Ray Davis as kick returners and Khalil Shakir handles punt returns?
I think that's the either or, right? And obviously we haven't had Shakir because of injury. The other 2 guys, maybe you don't want to put them in harm's way. You've seen enough. But if you're going to go ahead and make a argument for Chenault or Hamlin or Hamler or Codrington, the proof's out there. I mean, it's always Codrington taking those punt returns. So it probably would have to be him, but then where do you fit him in? Where do you put him on the roster? You just add him to the DB group and say, we're gonna count you as a guy, even though you're not going to play DB for us, but that's where we put you. I mean, that's what's so hard about this.
Yeah, that's what gets hard about, especially you're talking about, okay, we want to keep a 6th linebacker. We want to maybe keep a 6th wide receiver. Right. You're going to want to protect yourself at corner, right? That's where it gets a little bit tricky on a Brandon Codrington conversation. But I do think it is shaping up for him to be the punt return. I think the only other possibility is Khalil Shakir handles it.
Right.
And we'll we'll find out soon enough on that.
It'd be rough going into the first game with a guy that hasn't practiced in a long, long time, you know, to return punts, especially a guy that's got a high ankle sprain and you're not wanting to get him hurt.
That's a good call out.
Because when you're on those teams, man, where are they going? It's like bees at the legs. It's just probably not.
All right, coming up next, I want to talk a little Tyler Bass. We've had another position player handling kicking duties, and also want to pick Jerry's brain about a couple of things, including what the coming days from a player's perspective are like, and then just this offensive line depth conversation, which has not trended how I hoped it would this preseason. We got to do all that here on the other side of it. Folks, please be sure to stick with us. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo, and you should too, whether it's your first ever league or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. And what I'm really excited about this year is trying out the Guillotine Leagues. I've never done one of these, but they're brand new on Yahoo, and way that it works is the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. So I think that's going to be super fun. I'm trying that out this year. And then there's some fun strategy involved with, as teams get eliminated, what happens with their roster? Do they go into the waiver wire? And then you have this big free agent budget to work on. I think it's going to be fun. So check that out and all the fun stuff over at Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season kicks off September 4th. So don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Bills beat the Bucs, close out the preseason with a win, and more importantly, they played well, which we couldn't say that for the first two preseason games. Let's talk Tyler Bass. Obviously, it's been a strange training camp for him. Pelvis injury, missed a lot of time. And then Sean McDermott finally came out and said, the plan was for him to kick against Tampa. Well, he did. And he goes 3 for 4 on field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. His miss was from, 26 yards? Yeah. Very short miss. I've been watching Tyler Bass, obviously, like everyone else has for a long time. And I think there's two things that are true about Tyler Bass. One, he does not like to kick from the right hash, right? He prefers the left hash. And the reason why is because the number two thing is that ball on him typically tails to the right. I thought you saw that creep up a couple of different times tonight. And it's hard to contextualize a kicker because it's the ball goes through the pipes or it doesn't. And I don't know what he's going through or like if his mechanics are off or anything like that. If I watch a position player, I'm a little bit more familiar with, their operation, what they're supposed to do. And you can maybe say, okay, they're rusty. They're coming off of injury. You can give them some grace, but I don't feel like the ball flights were pure for Tyler Bass. And I don't know if I'm supposed to expect them to be, right? I mean, like he hasn't had a normal ramp up. But obviously we're coming up here on this week 1 game and he needs to get himself ready to go, calloused up, whatever you got to do as a kicker to be ready to go. And one thing that Sean McDermott has said in the post game is that they had him capped at 48 yards. Like they wouldn't let him kick a field goal longer than 48 yards. So how do you layer that together? How are you feeling about Tyler Bass?
I think you could see a little bit of hesitation as far as the follow through and stuff and not wanting to really get after it and didn't do many pre-kick warm-ups. You'll see him out there doing the hops and swinging their leg and everything. So I'm sure that there's a little bit of hesitation. As he kicks more, he'll probably get more confidence. But, yeah, I mean, this goes along the lines of what's better for the Buffalo Bills. Is it 85, 90% Tyler Bass or bring in somebody else? And I think right now they've chosen Bass, and they're going to just have to live with the decision and see if he can get through it. Now, if he doesn't, if he re-aggravates it, I mean, I thought he was fine. I thought his leg looked good, but you could tell he wasn't really cranking on it like he normally would. So, yeah, I mean, it's good that they're putting him on a little bit of a governor, because he's somebody that you need.
Well, and should that be the case where you thought maybe he wasn't kicking with his full, normal power, you could understand how less force on the ball isn't going to kind of drive it, and you're going to get the tailing off a little bit sooner.
Right.
So that mechanically makes sense. But I mean, I guess he in totality goes 5 of 6, but I didn't watch Tyler Baston. I thinking, wow, ball is booming off his leg and it's a pure ball flight like I was hoping to see. But I'm trying to understand the context of a guy that really hasn't had his normal process to this point.
Well, two things. Think of him kicking like when you play golf. You don't shut the club face and you just kind of swing through it. You get that slice, right?
Yeah.
So when you're on that right hash, if you're really not following through and really banging it through and getting that foot through, you get that tail of the ball, which I think might be the case there. The good thing for the Bills and Tyler Bass is this new kickoff. You don't really have to go out there and bang it.
No, yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
It,
so
right.
you're
it's better if you don't. Yeah,
right. You can go ahead and save that. You're not trying to drive it through a bunch of wind and trying to get it in the end zone. It's a much shorter, less stressful kick on the body. So I think that actually bodes well for him.
We got to see Zach Davidson punt in this game. Was that first one 62 yards in the air? Had a few other punts after seeing Ray Davis kick an extra point. Zach Davidson he went to Central Missouri State. That's what he was. He was a punter. I think he played punter, maybe somewhere on defense.
Mules. Their mascot is the Mules.
I am so glad I learned that. I had no idea that they were the, just when I thought the Campbell Camels was the most unique.
Yes.
We got the Central Missouri State Mules.
Yes.
All right. When you were playing, was there any players that could moonlight as a kicker or a punter? Did you have any skills? You seem like you know a lot about kicking. What if Jerry Ostroski had to do something besides play offensive line for the Buffalo Bills? What could you do?
I could play 2-gap nose probably. That'd be about it. I wasn't kicking. I wasn't punting. I think our emergency kicker. I don't think it was Chris Moore. It might have been Chris Moore, but for some reason in my mind, I think it was Tasker. Really? And then the backup punter was actually Steve Christie, I believe. Right. So if the punter went out, it'd have been Christie. And I think it was, I do believe it was Steve Tasker. If I knew he wasn't, trying to get on an airplane right now from the preseason game, I'd text him and see if it was actually it. But I think it was Tasker, I believe, was our emergency kicker.
That's fun. So I can only imagine what this is like from a player's perspective. Like, respectfully, the hay's in the barn for these guys, right? I mean, they've some of these players have been around, since, several months, and OTAs, camp, preseason, and this is it, right? And the reality is this roster's going from 91 to 53. What's it like, man? Like, what can you tell us about? I'm sure there was probably plenty of years where you felt pretty safe, but you're certainly around these dudes. Like, is it just odd? Is people just it just is what it is? Are there unwritten rules? Like, I can only imagine what this is like.
It's pretty nerve-wracking, to be honest with you. And I think before, they had the 2 cuts. So usually the first cut went about how you figured it would, and then the second one was always a tough one. And, you had your last preseason game on a Saturday, and cut downs. I think final cut downs were actually Sunday afternoon. It was a Sunday afternoon at 4 or 5. It wasn't Tuesday. So, you just kind of locked yourself in your hotel room.
Yeah.
For the guys that didn't have houses to live in or whatever, the guys that were trying to make it as rookies or free agents or whatever, you just kind of locked yourself in your hotel room and hope that the phone didn't ring. Because if the phone rang, it was usually, hey, you need to come to the stadium. We need to talk. The other one that's kind of unnerving is when you walk in and the dudes are waiting at the front door.
Jeez.
And you kind of get the tap on the shoulder. Hey, you need to come with me. And then you go in and,
bring your playbook, right?
Next thing you know, you're either getting on an airplane or you're driving home. I mean, I remember getting cut by Kansas City. Got cut by Mark Hatley, who was the pro player personnel guy. I didn't even get cut by Marty. Got cut by Mark and walked in, and Mark, they called the hotel room, and I went in and brought my playbook and got cut. And he said, go see the secretary out front. And she said, son, where do you live? I said, I live in Tulsa. She goes, you flying or driving? I said, I'm driving. She pulled out an atlas, plopped it on her desk, and got the map out and saw how many miles it was. And I got like 25 cents a mile. And she handed me a check. She said, you be careful.
Unreal.
And, I filled up my car with gas and drove home. So
unreal.
Yeah. I walked in my buddy's apartment at like, I don't know, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And he looked at me, he goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I just got cut." He goes, Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." And that's how it is. It's that cut and dry. So it can be nerve-wracking. I mean, I remember before I actually got a chance to make it, got cut by the Bills. After my first, I came up with practice squad that preseason. Afterwards, I got cut by the Bills the last cut, and they're all on the phone like, "Hey," you could hear John, you could hear Marv, and you could hear Dwight Adams. They're in the room like, "Hey, don't go." They had me on speakerphone. "Don't go crazy now. Just come on in. We need to talk to you because we're gonna bring him back on the practice squad." So I went into the facility, and I went to John's office, and John, Marv, and Dwight are in there smoking cigars. And I can remember I'm 6'4", and from about 6'5" and up to the ceiling was smoke, and down was clear. And then they, talk to me, "Hey, we want you to, if you make it through waivers, we're bringing you back. Since you're coming back, we want you here. We're going to give you more, all that stuff." And then, the last part of the season, I got activated. So, it's different. It's not. There's no warm and fuzzies, man. It's pretty cut and dry, and it is what it is.
Yeah, he's a human. There's, these are real people. They're real people. I can imagine. I'm not going to act like I know, but I know that these guys put a lot into this, to find out. Yeah.
The hard one is when you're kind of a vet, or you've been there a little bit, you're making it, and you're, the guys you're talking to and stuff, they have no clue, and what's coming.
Yeah.
And then it happens, and you have those awkward conversations, and, in some cases, final goodbyes. I mean, I remember in Kansas City hanging, myself and Jay Lewenberg and another guy from Wyoming who was a defensive end. We always did a bunch of stuff together, and we weren't playing Catan back then. We were big into cribbage, but we all got cut, and it was kind of, I seen Jay again because we played against each other, but Doug, I never saw him again. Never talked to him again.
And it's probably, you're not really going to confide in your teammates. You guys all want the same thing. It's like,
right.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can imagine how strange it is.
That's where the individualistic part comes back out, because, as much as you're trying to build these teams and everything, at that point in time, it's about, I want a job. And I'm sorry you didn't get the job. I got the job, but it's the way it goes.
Jerry, let's end here. I know that the Bills ended the season on a high note, ended the preseason on a high note. But if there's a bummer to me from this entire training camp and preseason, it's been that we haven't gotten the opportunity to see more of this developing offensive line depth.
Yeah.
I'm talking Cedric Van Pran-Granger, who had 0 training camp, missed the whole thing with a calf. Tylen Grable missed a good chunk of this with a concussion. Alec Anderson had the knee thing. I think he's going to be fine. But, I mean, you still missed a lot of time there. And as the Bills do have some choices to make with Connor McGovern and David Edwards, I was really excited to see some of these young guys get a chance to play. And hopefully we don't see them play this year. This was kind of their opportunity to put some tape out there. So how detrimental was this for these players, particularly Van Pran-Granger and Grable, who, if you told me that those guys were future starters for this team going into camp, I'd probably believe you that that's a possibility. Now it's like, I didn't learn anything about these guys other than that they were hurt.
Yeah, it was tough. I think it was hard on the Bills. I think they were really going to, focus on these two, Grable and Cedric Van Pran-Granger. I think they know what they got in Alec Anderson. I think they know what he's about. I don't think there's any stress there. It was basically get the knee cleaned up, and he had gotten the knee surgery, and then when we were at camp, he was already on the bike with no wrap, so I think he's going to be fine. But Cedric and Grable are guys that I think they're really looking at to possibly be those next dudes. And to not have that opportunity to coach him this preseason very much, Cedric at all, is tough for the franchise because it's going to change some things. You're going into a season where Van Pran-Granger is going to probably still be on the PUP list. You hope you get Grable back. You hope this isn't a lingering thing where he's constantly dealing with concussion. Obviously, it was a good one because we haven't seen him in quite a while. So, I think it's very concerning, Joe. I think it's because this is, even though you're talking about this team. You know, just the new thing in college everybody comes out with. This is team 162, or this is team, you know, this is 2025 version of the Bills. As much as you're concentrating on building that team, with the way the cap and everything is, you got to look at 26, you got to look at 27. I think these guys are big parts of that. And then not have you basically missed a very big segment of development for both of them. And you're never going to have that chance again until next preseason, because what are they going to do when they do come back? They're going to go down and run practice. They're going to go down and run the scout team for the defense. And that's why you can get some stuff out of that. And it is very, you know, advantageous to do that. I did it. It's still not preseason games. It's still not preseason camp. And, you know, I'm sure the Bills are disappointed for sure.
Just now from Jay Skursky on X, just spoke with Bills coach Sean McDermott. He said the team is awaiting results of an MRI for Tre'Davious White, and that more information will be provided once it has been evaluated. I guarantee that MRI is done. They know exactly what the results are. McDermott's buying time here. But I guess the only piece of information we really learned there is that an MRI happened. Does that give you any indicators about what we can rule out or what we can rule in, the fact that an MRI was done here?
MRIs are used to diagnose soft tissue injury. Tendons, ligaments, muscles is what MRIs are used for. If you hear a player going in for a CAT scan, it's usually skeletal type stuff. You know, they can't see it on the x-ray. They bring him in a CAT scan. CAT scans will show some soft tissue, and it'll show some things like if you have a ligament that pulls a chunk of bone off and things like that. But usually MRIs are used for soft tissue diagnosis, to see if you have an ACL tear or to see if you have a shoulder, a labral tear, things like that. Meniscus tears, all that is done through MRI. So if he's in an MRI machine, which, you know, just like you said, he's probably been in it like 3 days ago. And the Bills, the Buffalo Bills are not waiting for you know, to read. You know, it's not like the rest of the public where we got to wait for somebody somewhere else to read an MRI. They know exactly what happened, and they know exactly what they're dealing with. I think it does give you a bit of concern. I know there's some gamesmanship coming up with this first game of the season. They don't want Baltimore. They want them to have a, is he going to play, not play thing, but still not saying anything about it is a little bit, you know, nerve you up a little bit.
All right, Jerry, this has been fun. Bills winners over the Bucs, 23-19. Our next conversation on Bill Squad will come on Thursday. The three of us all intact. And we still have a regular episode of Locked On Bills to do. My plan for the post game is going to be, I'm going to give you my final 53-man roster projection. And through that, I'll kind of get into some of my thoughts on this game. But, you know, these cuts are going to happen pretty quick here. So we'll give you my final 53-man roster projection here in a little bit. What you got, Jerry?
Am I going to be sad or happy after I watch it?
Well, I'm not going to spoil that right now. You'll just have to watch it and find out. So with that in mind, we thank you for being here. As always, we kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.